Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the session. So, we are back with a new series this week. Till last week, we have been revising for MPPSC exam, right? But the Kerala set exam is also around the corner. We thought that we should also revise for that exam as well. So, today onwards, in this week, we will be revising for the Kerala set exam, which has the similar syllabus as NET. Right, Kerala set has the exact same syllabus as NET. And I hope all of you are well accustomed to the PYQ structure of Kerala set. Yes. So with that being said, let me share my screen with you all so that I can show you the questions. Yes. I believe my screen is visible to you all. So welcome to the very first session of Kerala set. Okay, welcome again to the very first session of Kerala set. Are you all ready? Let me open your chat box and see what you are saying. Wait, let me open the live chat. Yeah. Good evening, good evening. Hi, Lokesh. Chalo, let's get started then. Here is the first question for tonight. In the opening line of Ode to Autumn by John Keats, the speaker states that this autumn is the season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. What precise poetic function does the word mellow serve in relation to the sun in line 2 of Ode to Autumn by John Keats? What do you mean by the term mellow here? Tell me. What is the meaning of the term mellow here? In relation to the sun, it indicates an active collaboration of ripening and softening under solar maturity. Okay, Ode to Autumn by John Keats. It is one of the 6 great odes by John Keats, written in the year 1819. The year 1819 was known as the Annus Mirabilis, or wonderful year by John Keats. Right, 1819 was the Annus Mirabilis, or wonderful year for John Keats, because in that year 1819 he wrote 6 of his great odes. Right, who wrote the work Annus Mirabilis? Who wrote the work Annus Mirabilis, published in 1667? Who wrote the work Annus Mirabilis, published in 1667? That's by Dryden. That's by Dryden. Which was the Annus Mirabilis for Tennyson? Which was the Annus Mirabilis, or wonderful year, for Tennyson? Which was the Annus Mirabilis, or wonderful year, for Tennyson? 1850. 1850. Because in 1850, his major work In Memoriam was published. He became the poet laureate in that year, and he also got married to his lady love, Emily Selwood, in 1850. 3 major incidents in his life happened in 1850. His major work In Memoriam was published. He became the poet laureate, and he also got married to his lady love, Emily Selwood. Okay, right. Next question. Which specific personified roles does autumn assume sequentially across the 4 distinct scenes in stanza 2 of Ode to Autumn? Easy. Which specific personified roles does autumn assume sequentially across the four distinct scenes in stanza 2? First, we see autumn sitting on the granary floor. Then we see her as a drowsy ripper, then as a steady gleaner, and lastly, we see autumn as a cedar press watcher. Correct. Option B is the correct answer. Option B is the correct answer. Who wrote Ode to the West Wind? Who wrote Ode to the West Wind? It's by Shelley. It's by P.B. Shelley. All right. Okay, next. Now let's do a question from the religious allegory, The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. When Christian is hosted at the house of the interpreter, which specific allegorical scene is shown to him in the private room where a man pours water upon a fire, yet the fire burns higher and hotter? When Christian is hosted at the house of interpreter in the Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, which specific allegorical scene is shown to him in the private room where a man pours water upon a fire, yet the fire burns higher and hotter? He is shown the allegorical scene of the grace of Christ, secretly maintaining the work of faith against the devil's attempts to quench it. Okay, it shows the grace of Christ secretly maintaining the work of faith against the devil's attempts to quench it. Tell me, this religious allegory, The Pilgrim's Progress, was published in which year? Tell me. The Pilgrim's Progress was published in 1678. 1678. The title of which novel was borrowed from The Pilgrim's Progress? The title of which novel was borrowed from The Pilgrim's Progress? Thackeray's Vanity Fair. Thackeray's Vanity Fair. What is the subtitle of Vanity Fair? What is the subtitle of Vanity Fair? Vanity Fair, or A Novel Without a Hero. A Novel Without a Hero. Okay. Next. During the trial of Faithful at Vanity Fair, which three corrupt witnesses are suborned and brought forth to testify against him by the town authorities? So during the trial of Faithful at Vanity Fair, which three corrupt witnesses are brought forth to testify against him by the town authorities? Envy, superstition, and pickthank. Envy, superstition, and pickthank. Correct. Tell me, is Apollyon a monster in the Pilgrim's Progress? Is Apollyon a monster in the Pilgrim's Progress? Yes. Yes, correct. Next. In the opening chapters of Wings of Fire, Dr. Kalam attributes his core foundational values regarding integrity and discipline to specific familial figures who specifically taught him to reject self-pity and understand that adversity always presents opportunities for introspection. So, who had taught Dr. Kalam to reject self-pity and to understand that adversity always presents opportunities for introspection. Yes, Wings of Fire is an autobiographical work by Dr. Kalam. His father, Jainul Abidin, had taught him this. His father, Jainul Abidin, had taught him this. Tell me, who wrote the autobiography of an unknown Indian? Who wrote the autobiography of an unknown Indian? Published in 1951. Published in 1951. It's by Nirad C. Chaudhary. It's by Nirad C. Chaudhary. Okay, right. Next. In Act 1 of Look Back in Anger, which specific Shakespearean text does Jimmy Porter invoke during his bitter diatribe regarding the complex and contradictory nature of women? In Act 1 of Look Back in Anger by John Osborne, which specific Shakespearean text does Jimmy Porter invoke during his bitter diatribe regarding the complex and contradictory nature of women? Here he alludes to sonnet number 129 of Shakespeare. Sonnet number 129 of Shakespeare. Tell me, this play Look Back in Anger was produced by which movement? This play Look Back in Anger was produced by which movement? Angry Young Man movement of 1950s. Angry Young Man movement of 1950s. Does this play also belong to the subgenre of kitchen sink realism? Does this play also belong to the subgenre of kitchen sink realism? Kitchen sink realism, yes. Yes. Tell me, Look Back in Anger was first performed in which year? Look Back in Anger was first performed in which year? 1956. 1956. Here in this play, what does Jimmy Porter call his wife Allison? He calls Allison by which name? Jimmy Porter calls Allison, his wife, by which name? Which signifies her lack of courage and cowardice. He calls her Lady Pusillanimous. He calls her Lady Pusillanimous. Right. Next. So, many of you have already got this book and many of you love this book. It is Once Upon a Rhyme, another fantastic book from our Vallath books. So if you want, you can check this out from our website of Vallath books. And it's like the best one-place solution for the section of poetry in NET or for any competitive exam for that matter. Okay, right. So next question. In the opening stanza of Ode to a Nightingale, the speaker states that his drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though he had drunk hemlock or emptied an opiate to the drains 1 minute past, and letterwords had sunk. What precise psychological or emotional state does this opening invoke? It's a beautiful question from John Keats's Ode to a Nightingale. From the very opening lines, this question has been taken from, right? So what precise psychological or emotional state does this opening invoke? Have you all liked the session? Yeah, it refers to a state of negative capability and hypersensory overload through extreme joy. An extreme joy brought about by that singing of the nightingale. Yes, it is option B, correct. Tell me, was John Keats the one who had coined the phrase egotistical sublime for Wordsworth? Was John Keats the one Who had coined the phrase egotistical sublime for Wordsworth? Yes. Yes. Tell me, who proposed the idea of willing suspension of disbelief? Who proposed the idea of willing suspension of disbelief? Coleridge. Coleridge proposed the idea of willing suspension of disbelief in his work Biographia Literaria, published in 1817. Biographia Literaria, published in 1817. Right. Next. Which specific political conflict of the 15th century directly resulted in the depletion of the English nobility and indirectly paved the way for the rise of the Tudor dynasty and centralized statecraft depicted in Renaissance literature? Again, quite a nice question. From the history of the Renaissance period. From the history of the Renaissance period. Which specific political conflict of the 15th century? It is the Wars of the Roses. The Wars of the Roses, which continued from 1455 to 85, right? That war obviously led to the establishment of the Tudor dynasty. Tudor dynasty. The War of the Roses, which happened. Right. It is option C, the Wars of the Roses. All of you have forgotten history of Renaissance period, it seems. It is obviously the Wars of the Roses, which continued from 1455 to 85. Right, yeah. Next. Who wrote Utopia, 1516? A foundational text of English Renaissance humanism that critiqued contemporary socio-economic conditions and also outlined an ideal commonwealth. Easy. Who wrote Utopia? It's a Latin work. Utopia, a foundational text of English Renaissance humanism that critiqued contemporary socio-economic conditions and outlined an ideal commonwealth. Correct. It is by Thomas More. It is by Thomas More. It's a Latin work which was translated into English in 1551 by Ralph Robinson. It's a Latin work which was later translated into English in 1551 by Ralph Robinson. Okay, right. Okay, here's the fill in the blank question. Match the temporal markers in column A with the corresponding symbolic life stages in column B, according to the structural progression of Indian weavers. So you all know that Indian Weavers is a poem by Sarojini Naidu. And in this poem, each stanza actually alludes to a particular stage of human life. So break of day, what does it suggest? Fall of night, what does it mean? And moonlight chill, what does it mean? So these times of day, they allude to which stage of human life? It is option C. Break of. Ayyo. Sorry, I have marked it wrongly. Wait. Break of day. It is not option C. Wait, I marked it wrong. Break of day would be infancy or birth. Fall of night would be adulthood or celebration of marriage. And moonlight chill means mortality or death, that is funeral. So A2. A2 B1 and C3. It would be option B. Option B. Option B would be correct, not C. Okay. Now we have a question here from Pride and Prejudice of Jane Austen. In volume 3, chapter 8 of Pride and Prejudice, when Lady Catherine de Bourgh confronts Elizabeth at Longbourn, Elizabeth refuses to give a promise. What specific promise does Lady Catherine demand of her regarding Mr. Darcy? What specific promise does Lady Catherine demand of her regarding Mr. Darcy? Easy. That she will never enter into an engagement to marry him. Lady Catherine had asked Elizabeth to promise her that she will never enter into an engagement to marry him. Lady Catherine wanted Elizabeth to promise to her that she will never enter into an engagement to marry him. Yeah, it is option C indeed. Next. In Nissim Ezekiel's poem, Poet, Lover, Bird Watcher, the poet substitutes which traditional Shakespearean romantic or artist archetype with the bird watcher? So he compares the bird watcher with which character archetype of Shakespeare? The lunatic. Sorry, I forgot to mark the question. It would be the lunatic. The lunatic. In Nissim Ezekiel's poet, lover, bird watcher, the poet substitutes the bird watcher with the Shakespeare's archetype of the lunatic from A Midsummer Night's Dream. From the Midsummer Night's Dream. Next. Which character in the novel Great Expectations delivers the recurring cynical legal maxim that take nothing on its looks, take everything on evidence? Which character in the novel Great Expectations delivers the recurring cynical legal maxim that take nothing on its looks, take everything on evidence? Who said this? It was said by the lawyer Jaggers. The lawyer Jaggers. Okay, right. One more question. Which critical framework primarily champions an objective intrinsic approach to a literary text, treating the work as a self-contained, autonomous verbal object, free from authorial intention and reader psychology? Which critical framework primarily champions an objective intrinsic approach to a literary text, treating the work as a self-contained, autonomous verbal object, free from authorial intention and reader psychology? Is obviously new criticism. New criticism. Yes, new criticism. Very good. New criticism. All right, so that's all from our side for tonight. I really hope you guys loved this question and enjoyed answering them. So yes, you can check out our book Once Upon a Rhyme from Vallath Books and get it. So that's all for tonight. I will Meet you all again tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. with another episode of Kerala Set Revision. Till then, please take care, keep studying, and do like the session. All right. Chalo. Bye then.